Well, hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut Shop, and welcome to Friday. Late in the day, we're about to wrap it up for the week. We have one more car to look at. You guys are going to join us with that. We have a 2008 Toyota RAV4 with a V6 with a cold start rattle. Now, this car has been here all day. We wanted it to cool down so we can hear the rattle. So let's go walk up to the car. Let's start it. Let's hear the rattle. Check it out. We'll do everything else. Okay, well, here's our RAV4 in red, 2008. Let's open the hood and FE. It's a very windy day, so excuse the sound. We're gonna switch. Eros will go ahead and start this car, and let's listen to the noise. And it didn't do the rattle. Yeah, this is where we get into these situations where cannot duplicate concern. So we're gonna have to leave this again for another weekend. But while we got the video rolling, we're gonna go drive it, check it out, and we'll leave it sit over the weekend and see what happens. Let's go for a test drive, shall we? This car has 190. Nice RAV4. These are what I call the rocket RAV4. First thing I noticed right off the bat is intermediate shaft. If you ever drive your Toyota at low speeds, turn the wheel, kind of hard to, probably can't hear it, but I feel in the steering wheel. It's like a clunk, clunk, clunk. That's an intermediate shaft. Quiet over bumps. Well, so far so good. The car is nice. This V6 in these is scary. Very fast car. Let's take it for a drive, bring it in the shop, we'll check it out, and then we'll see what we're gonna do, because it didn't do it. That's why you gotta verify the customer complaints, otherwise you're just going in blind. And if this needs VVTi gears, we're not gonna quote the customer an engine out job based on their description. You gotta hear the noise. For all we know, it could be just a belt noise. One thing about these RAV4s, they're loud. Wind noise, road noise, things are extremely loud in this RAV4. That's just by design. It has an aftermarket windshield, which is whistling. You can hear how loud this thing is. That's just how these are. Nothing about it. Well, drives pretty straight. Brakes pulsate slightly. Not too bad. Turn around, go back to the shop, check it out. These can be great cars, but they can also be really bad ones. And I see, for some reason, so many people neglect these. It's like certain models, you'll rarely see a neglected Avalon, but you very easily find one of these really neglected. I don't know why, it's just how it is. But you find good one, or you've had one, you kept it in good shape. They're decent cars. Not quiet, not really luxurious in any way, shape, or form, but they're kind of workhorses. They just run and run and run. Now this one does have the what I describe as an airplane noise from the transmission. Something very common with them. If you ever hear it, it's like a whine. It goes up and down. Many people fear that it's a transmission issue. It's just noise travel. Toyota did issue a TSB for changing the transmission mount. Really didn't fix anything, and then they changed transmissions. That's back when they were under warranty. Right now, you have one. It makes that whine. I hope you hear it. Let me try it again. Maybe a little microphone will catch it up. literally sounds like a airplane taking off. If you get that, don't worry about it. Here it is again. It'll just keep making that whine, and it'll just keep going and going and going. Suspension is very rough on these usually. It's not the quietest or most smoothest car there is. Well, let's go in the shop. And excuse the mess in the shop. It's dirty. It's Friday. It's right around 4 o'clock. So things are not at their finest right now. This is where we usually clean the shop and leave it nice and clean for the next week, which we're gonna do after this video. Okay, let's go check this thing out. Okay. Oh, these are the cool ones. It has two hood positions. One of them is the low one, and one of them is the high one. Supposedly for service. Doesn't always work like that. Well, let's take a look. And the first thing I see is got some broken connectors right here. Not a big issue, but basically these could vibrate themselves out. There's nothing holding them. So that's either replace the connector, somebody uses a zip tie trick, which by the way, don't do that, because when you go to remove that, it's not fun. And or you can just put a little bit of sealer here just to hold it. Looking at this, these are extremely tight. There is a lot to see. I see a aftermarket clamp right there, which means this is potentially an aftermarket hose. This one, original, you can see the clamp right there. This has a dipstick for the transmission. See a little bit of seepage right here. It's not an issue from the cam tower. The one thing we're gonna really wanna look into is, does this have a leaking head gasket, which was somewhat common on these. Really hard to see, but if you look in there and you see all kinds of coolant piled up in the valley, there's your cue that the head gasket is leaking, which it is not, at least from what I'm looking at. Doesn't seem to be. No, it's good. I don't see anything down there. Here's the trans. I don't see anything standing out at me right here. Brake fluid, dirty. Still have to be tested. Battery is 24F. Looks newerish. We'll test that. It's a date right here. Actually, not newerish. This is 4 years old. Well, let's lift it up and let's see what we see underneath it. Something about lifting these. When you lift these, don't lift it from this part. They always love to bend these, and you see these bent up or the other way. This is not a lift point. The lift point is right here. So you always want to push everything back, not here. You can lift it from there, but it could create a seriously unpleasant situation when you're underneath the car and all of a sudden this bends and it'll give you the scare of your life. So try not to do that. Let's do the other side. See, somebody already did that. Not as bad, I've seen worse, but you see this one is bent right here. Somebody tried to pick it up from here and bend this. Sometimes you'll see this entire section just bent in or out. So never lift these from here. It's actually dangerous to do that. Even if you're changing this flat tire or something. And that's it. Well, let's go up with it. Let's do our initial inspection. And then we'll leave it over the weekend and see if we can hear that noise. Let's first look at the struts. So these struts look original. The insulator is long gone, but I don't see any leaks here, so that should be good. Brakes, they have plenty of life. I don't know if you can see them. No, I don't think you will be able to. But they have plenty of life in the front. Control arm, it's really hard to see it from here, but you can see the bushing right there. It does have a few cracks. You see cracks like that, that's normal. That is from age. There's nothing to be worried about. Let's look at the other side. Same thing here, insulator is gone. Control arm has a few cracks, but these are not cracks to be confused with issues. Something super common on these is inner tie rods going out. This side is tight. Let's go check the other one. See? It is just very, yep, this inner tie rod is gone. See, the problem is Toyota does not sell you the inner tie rod separate, so you either buy a super expensive rack and pinion or you go aftermarket. Really, at the edge of this car, this might be an issue because you're not going to spend $1,500 on a rack and pinion on a car this old that needs a lot more. See, this is how things start piling up. So in this case, we might have no choice but to go aftermarket just to give the owner more time. So let's, while we're here, let's look at the rear brakes. Again, perhaps really hard to see on camera, but yeah, it's hard to see. But these rear brakes have plenty of life. I don't see any issues here. Tires look like they were put on yesterday. These are Nokian tires. These are actually not off-brand, folks. These are serious winter tires. And these brakes are also good. I think you can see them from here. So let's raise it up. Let's take a look. All right, well, let's take a look around. Well, the first thing I see is, you guessed it, front timing cover leak. Not a big one though. Let's see if I can put the camera in there, you see it? Not a big one though, but nonetheless, it's leaking. I see a brand new water pump, you see it very shiny. Let's see if it's original. It is ASIN, so that's good enough. Not Toyota one. Oh, actually, it does say Toyota right there. Never mind. It is an original water pump, so that's very good. Looks very recent. Head gasket is not leaking. You would see a trail of coolant, but front cover is leaking. That is very common on these. And transmission is also common to leak on these. This one is good. The transfer case, though, the seal between the transfer case and the trans is a little seepage, not a concern at the moment. Put a clip here, this clip is missing. Let's look at the inner pads. Inner pads look good. Strut looks good. Sway bar link is good. Oil filter housing, original, says Toyota right there, good. Front head gasket. I'm trying to see it from here. Really hard to, I'd love to show you guys, but really hard to put the camera in there. You also have to look at it. This does not have an oil cooler line here, so that's good. Going back, we potentially have an exhaust, very small exhaust leak here. And I'm surprised at this relic. This is called a relic. See how many holes this thing has? This actually was so bad that Toyota had a campaign to replace these, because technically this is part of the catalytic converter. They're in the same pipe. The newer RAV4, they separated them. So this muffler is leaking, of course, but it's not too loud, too bad. This is also leaking right here. The rear viscous coupler, also super common to leak on these, but this one is not leaking. And the bearing right here is also notorious to go out, make all kinds of noise. This one seemed relatively quiet. The recall was done on the rear arms, which disables the adjustment. Rear shocks are Bilstein shocks, and these are actually not original shocks. Super common again on these. These rear shocks love to leak. Very easy to do, except the top is a little tight, but not impossible. Differential, no leaks. Again, axle seals, common to leak on these. And this one is like shadowy. Either somebody fixed it and didn't clean it 100%, or it's just starting. Not a concern at this point. Rear sway bar links. These are aftermarket. There is no fitting on the original ones. So these are super common to break, and usually people look at them from here, they're fine. You gotta go in and move it, and you'll see that the inner part and the outer part are separated. They're no longer one piece. Everything else is looking okay. The spring is extremely rusty, but otherwise seems in decent shape. Well, this car is not in terrible shape. Look, it's not a new car. It's a 2008, has a lot of years, does have some issues. My main concern though is that rattle from a cold start. If it is VVTi gears, we're gonna have a problem because front camera leaking, not the end of the world. But the rattle on cold start is a problem. But what is kind of looking up for the owner of this car is it didn't happen after it sat here for 4 or 5 hours. So it might be not as bad as these can get. Sometimes these get so bad every time you start it rattles. Sometimes they even rattle when it's running. That's how bad these get. But the fact that it didn't rattle might not be as bad as we thought. So here's what we're gonna do. I am going to grab my family, go home, enjoy my weekend, not vacation, not yet. Enjoy my weekend, and for you guys, it'll be 2 seconds. For me, it'll be 2 days later. We'll see you then. Have a good weekend, or a virtual weekend. Well, we're back. I hope you enjoyed your virtual 2-second weekend. It felt like a little bit more than 2 seconds for us, one haircut later. But we're ready to cold start this thing. It has sat here all the weekend. So let's see if it makes the grinding noise. I'll take the camera from Arrows, go ahead, and let's start it. Let's hear it. Nope. Shut it off, Arrows. So it didn't do the cold start rattle. So I'm gonna venture off and say this one is in its early stages. If you get your car like this, where every once in a while it'll make the grinding noise, but not all the time, I don't think we're at a level where we need to drop this whole engine, spend a small fortune, replace all 4 VVTi gears to fix it, because I don't think we're at that point, especially with this car. See, this is a conversation I'm gonna have with this customer. This car has some miles, it is older, and he told me they have many other cars. This is one of their other cars or spare cars. So I think in this case, we're only gonna need to worry about that inner tie rod, because that is safety. Maybe take care of the exhaust. Forget about the VVTi rattle until it gets worse. Then perhaps at that point they'll be done with the car, or if they want to fix it, that's up to them. Folks, these are situations in the automotive business repair world that it almost makes the customer feel like, are you telling me that I am crazy? That the problem I hear every day is not happening? It does happen all the time. I don't think the customer is crazy. I don't think they should be feeling that way, at least with me. I take their concerns seriously. We're gonna listen to it and check and double check. But it gets to a point where I'm not gonna leave this car here for a week and start it every day until it happens. I know there is a problem. I know what the problem is, because it's a cold start rattle. VVTi is something very common with this engine. But I wanted to see what stage are we at. In this case, the stage is not very dire, or I would recommend repair. Not that it doesn't happen. So if this happens to you, where your car is making a noise, you take it to your mechanic, it's no longer making a noise. Don't get frustrated. However, I understand why people get frustrated. Some mechanics will say, oh, I hear nothing, it's perfect, don't worry about it. No, I don't think that is the case. I agree with your concern. However, I don't think it's at a point where I would recommend repair yet. So don't worry about it for now. If it gets worse, then we will reevaluate and go from there. That is very different than just telling a customer, oh, I hear nothing, you're good, there's nothing wrong. No, there is something potentially wrong, but we're not to a point where we actually have to actively fix it. Makes a big difference there. I hope this video is helpful, informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. And until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.